a competition between Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. In the preseason, when asked how he would split reps between the two, head coach Vic Fangio says he expects it to be 50-50 throughout OTAs and training camp, and both Lock and Bridgewater will have an equal chance to get the starting job. I think that they're still in the conversation with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think that this is, I mean, how could you pass up on Mac Jones and Justin Fields unless that was the scenario?
It's interesting because Aaron Rodgers, there was a story that leaked this weekend. He was interested in the Raiders. It's like, timeout. Aaron, Denver's actually, the last two drafts, has gotten a lot of good players. Like Denver, if I told you tomorrow, Aaron Rodgers on Denver, that's a good football team.
I would feel better about Aaron Rodgers on Denver's team than Oakland, Las Vegas for sure.
Yeah, if I told you Aaron Rodgers on the Raiders, you'd be like, well, there'll be in a lot of high-scoring games with Mahomes and Justin Herbert.
Right.
So, like, I think Denver is one of those places that it was almost like Peyton Manning years ago. Peyton Manning looked around and went, Denver just needs a quarterback. I think Denver's once again in the just needs a top quarterback.
Plus, could you see Aaron Rodgers and Gruden?
Well, it's good for the...
I mean, it's good for us.
It's good for the marquee.
But I mean, do you think the two of them would... Is there enough room?
Listen, my first
is there
job...
enough air in the room for the two of them?
My first job out of college was Vegas. Siegfried and Roy always look good on the marquee. Gruden and Aaron's great on the marquee. It doesn't mean it's going to win. But you could not get a ticket for 5 years.
I would love it, but I'm just saying I don't know if that's a long-term winning situation. And we know at the end of the day how patient Chicago fans are going to be. But head coach Matt Nagy says they're not rushing Justin Fields onto the field next season. They did make an aggressive move up to get him, and he is not making any guesses about when Fields will make his debut.
For him, it's going to be exciting for him to just come in here and learn how to be a professional quarterback. It's not going to happen overnight. When the time is right, I promise you, every single person will know, including Justin, when it's the right time. And that's naturally how it happens.
Well, it's not the Kansas City, Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes situation. This is Chicago, and both of you are on the hot seat, yourself and the GM. And Chicago has not had a quarterback in decades. And you just made an aggressive move up for a guy that a lot of people had ranked second right behind Trevor Lawrence, and some people even thought he might be a better prospect than Trevor Lawrence.
He will play this year.
So yes, we're going to see him on the field. If you're questioning at all how people feel about your current quarterback situation without Justin Fields, you can go and check the mentions under that QB1 post that you guys put up with Andy Dalton.
Also, look at the schedule. Remember how last year, a couple years ago, we predicted when Lamar Jackson would start? Remember, we nailed it. We predicted week 11. And we kind of predicted when Tua would get an opportunity. Wait until the Bears' schedule comes out. If they get a bye or the Lions are coming up in week 9,
I don't even think it'll last that long.
I don't either, but there's a time to play him. So, listen, if it's Green Bay at Lambeau, you're not going to start him. Look at your schedule. Matt Nagy's going to look at that thing and go, okay, we got the Lions, then a bye, and then home against blank. Then you build some momentum. So he's going to play. My guess is first couple weeks in November, he'll play.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be very long at all. First of all, the fan base wants to see him.
Yeah.
Second of all, what is your quarterback situation? Nick Foles and Andy Dalton. So how are either of them going to fare against the Green Bay Packers? The fans are going to want to see him, and I don't subscribe as much to as other people do to like rookie quarterbacks need to sit for a year. I think if you have a very stable organization, if you have a situation where the coach has no heat on them, the GM has no heat on them, which is not the situation in Chicago. You guys are coming off a great season. That's everything that was going on with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Like they drafted their quarterback of the future. They had a very stable situation. Alex Smith, great pro, was playing in the playoffs. This is not the same situation. So I don't think that it's always the best thing for a quarterback to sit as a rookie. Like there is some value in learning what not to do when you lose, how to recover from getting blown out. Like I didn't think that was a good situation for Tua last year. If he was healthy, I think he should have been out there.
Yeah.
You also have more to evaluate when you let a rookie quarterback start. This is a different situation, obviously, because they're in the hot seat, so they may try and win a few games, to your point, before they put him out there. But let them get blown out once or twice, and there's not going to be any patience from the fan base anymore.
Right.
So the Broncos, who I thought sure were taking Justin Fields.
It was starting Thursday, a magical weekend. We all knew it was going to be Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, and then nobody knew what was going to happen. Number 3, Niners go Trey Lance. Albert Breer, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best for nothing MMQB. Okay, so, there's a lot of different stories out there. I don't think it was a smokescreen. My takeaway was Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac and got voted out. That was always kind of my feeling, but, who knows? What do you believe happened, the shift from Mac to Trey Lance?
Well, I just think the gap closed on where Mac's biggest advantage was, which was the part of the game that happens above the neck. Really, if you talk to enough teams about this, what they'll tell you is he was so advanced. He operated so fast. And I'm not talking about foot speed, just the way he processed the game was so fast that you could see him overcoming his physical limitations. And, the Niners are pitting him against another guy and 2 other guys, really, that didn't have those physical limitations. And I think the Niners learned about Trey Lance what a lot of other teams learned about Trey Lance. His football IQ is off the charts. His character is really good. He just needs to play more. That's really it, and he only played 17 games at the collegiate level. There are issues there with the fact that you didn't see him playing from behind very much at North Dakota State. I think you'd argue the gap between North Dakota State and their competition is larger than the gap between Alabama and their competition. And so there were a lot of critical situations that you didn't see Trey Lance in. So he is a little bit more of a pure projection. But I think the difference for the Niners was the one area where Mac Jones held a lead over the other 2 guys. I mean, really over the course of the month between the trade and the draft, Trey Lance was able to close that gap to the point where the Niners felt like they couldn't pass up on the upside that Lance brought to the table.
Before we get into the Aaron Rodgers stuff, I'm not a big believer in draft grades. It's consumable. I get it. It's fun. I did think Miami, just in terms of first 4 or 5 guys taken, I thought, boy, that is a good draft. It's funny. When I watched Miami's draft, my takeaway is the Jets are a 4th-place team, is that Buffalo's better. New England's got all the opt-ins. And I thought Miami, which has great defense and special teams, went offense. I guess if I said best draft weekend, is there anybody for you that stands out?
It's funny you mention the Jets. I think the Jets did really well. And let's move the quarterback aside because it's unpredictable what will happen with the quarterbacks. But I really think if you look here, Colin, there's almost like a self-awareness here of how they screwed Sam Darnold. You know what I mean? Over the last 3 years, a big reason why Sam Darnold didn't reach his potential was because of what was around him. And I don't know if Sam Darnold's ever going to make it as a franchise quarterback, but I think there's still a lot of unknown there because the situation around him was so broken. So what does Joe Douglas do? He hires, a head coach who's going to put in the most quarterback-friendly system in football. And if you look at their first 4 picks, go right on down the line, high-character guys. Beyond the quarterback, you've got an offensive guard in Oliver Tucker that's going to play next to Mekhi Becton. So now you've got 2 foundation pieces on the offensive line. You give him a slot receiver in Elijah Moore, who's going to create easy completions. And then you give him a back in Michael Carter, who can catch the ball out of the backfield. And so, I think it's hard to grade things a couple of days after the draft. But I think just looking as far as value goes, you look at where they got Vera Tucker. I thought that was a good spot to get him. A lot of teams viewed Elijah Moore as a first-round pick. They got him at the top of the 2nd round. And I don't think very many people at all expected Michael Carter to be there in the 4th round. They got him. And what I really like about it, again, is there's an acknowledgement that they need to do more around the young quarterback to really figure out who that young quarterback is. And so I think now they're giving Zach Wilson a much, much better chance to succeed in New York than they ever gave Sam Darnold.
All right, you talked to Brian Gutekunst yesterday, the GM of the Packers. I had said earlier in the show today, listen, if Jordan Love can play, this would make this all much easier to digest. But again, we've had more UFO sightings than Jordan Love sightings in the last couple of weeks because COVID, no media's around practice, so I have no idea. So take us to your conversation as much as you can tell us about the GM of the Packers yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, he's got his feet planted in the ground on this one. And I think it's an important detail to remember. He was with the organization in 2008 when all this was going on with Brett Favre. And so, I brought up to him the parallels there. I mean, Favre was mad, if you remember at the time, Colin, because they hadn't been aggressive enough around him. And really the flashpoint was not getting Randy Moss the year that Randy Moss went to New England. Then you look at the general manager, the relationship between the general manager and the quarterback. There was a coaching change involved. It was to Mike McCarthy with Favre. It was to Matt LaFleur with Rodgers. So there are a lot of parallels there. But when I asked Gutekunst about that and how his experience there might serve him now, basically said that it was different because the organization in 2008 made a decision they were going with Aaron Rodgers. And he told me point blank, we're not making that sort of decision right now, and we won't be making that sort of decision for the foreseeable future. And if you read between the lines, Colin, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And this isn't coming from Gutekunst. This is coming from other people who I think would know. I don't think they think Jordan Love's ready. And I think they feel like they've got a championship team right now, a team that obviously has been in the championship round the last 2 years. And I don't think they think it would serve that team particularly well to put Jordan Love on the field right now. And so I think as much as anything else, this is, again, the belief that they really do think that